Have you ever wondered what it feels like to lose everything you once loved, yet still be alive? Today, we share the heart-wrenching story of Truong, a man who mysteriously disappeared only to return with no memory of his past. He now lives with the woman who saved him, calling her mother, unaware of his true family, Ly Tieu Nu and little Tui. Join us as we explore his struggle with identity, lost memories, and the bittersweet bonds he forms in a life he no longer recognizes. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more emotional stories like this. Truong's disappearance had haunted everyone who knew him, leaving a void that seemed impossible to fill. For months, whispers of his fate lingered in the corridors of their lives, each rumor more chilling than the last. Then, unexpectedly, the news came. Truong was alive. At first, there was relief, overwhelming and almost euphoric, as if the world had suddenly become brighter. Families rejoiced, friends clung to the hope that the darkest chapter had finally ended. Yet, the reunion they had imagined so vividly never came. Truong returned, but he was not the man they remembered. A profound emptiness resided behind his eyes, a silent testimony to the cruel twist of fate. The tragedy lay not in his disappearance, but in what he had lost during the time he was gone. His memories, his identity, the very essence of who he was. No one could have prepared for the cruel reality of seeing someone alive yet absent from themselves. Truong walked among them like a ghost of his former self, his every movement familiar yet tinged with strangeness. He smiled at faces he once cherished, yet the warmth and recognition that had once connected them were gone, replaced by polite curiosity or, at times, confusion. The names of people he had loved, the laughter they had shared, the silent promises made in quiet moments, all were swallowed by a relentless void. Even the most intimate details of his own life, the rhythm of his own heartbeat in response to familiar places and voices, seemed foreign. And among the most painful absences were the memories of Ly Tieu Nu and little Tui. Those who had hoped that love and family could anchor him in reality were met with a cruel silence. Truong no longer remembered them. To witness the erasure of such bonds was almost unbearable, a sorrow that clung to the heart like a persistent shadow. The world that welcomed him back was now alien to him. Faces of loved ones were unrecognizable, their voices indistinct melodies that could not stir the chords of memory within him. Even the warmth of home and the comfort of familiar streets could not bridge the chasm between past and present. Truong was alive, yes, but he was no longer Truong as they had known him. He was a stranger inhabiting the skin of a beloved soul. And yet, despite the pain, there was a fragile hope. Perhaps in time, perhaps through love and care, fragments of who he had been might return. But for now, he was lost in his own mind, a man alive yet unclaimed by his own past, wandering through a life that should have been familiar, yet was now a labyrinth of shadows and emptiness. Amid the void that Truong now carried within him, there was one constant, one presence that anchored him to the world, the woman who had saved him. She had appeared when his life had been at its most fragile, pulling him back from the edge of despair and giving him a second chance at existence. In the chaos of his lost memories, she became more than a guardian. She became his mother, the one figure whose voice calmed the storms in his mind and whose touch offered a fragile sense of safety. Each morning, Truong would wake to her gentle guidance, her presence a steady rhythm in a life otherwise unrecognizable. When he called her mother, the words slipped effortlessly from his lips, unburdened by the weight of past knowledge, yet infused with the warmth that seemed both instinctive and necessary. To the woman, caring for Truong was more than an obligation, it was a profound act of devotion. She watched him closely, learning the nuances of his moods, the small gestures that revealed moments of clarity, and the rare flashes when his eyes betrayed a flicker of the man he had once been. Every day was a delicate balancing act, nurturing his trust, guiding him gently, and protecting him from the heartbreak of realizing what had been lost. Yet, behind her composed demeanor, there was a silent sorrow. She understood, more than anyone, the depth of what Truong has forgotten. The names and faces of his true family, the love of Ly Tieu Nu, and the innocent laughter of little Yu were now unreachable, buried under the weight of amnesia. In moments when she observed Truong laughing or speaking to her with a tenderness that should have belonged to another, she felt the ache of absence, the quiet grief of memories that could not be restored. Despite the sadness, there was also beauty in the bond they shared. Truong leaned on her in ways that were instinctual, trusting her completely without question, and in return, she gave him unwavering care and affection. Their relationship, though born from circumstance, blossomed into something that felt real and vital. Each act of kindness, each shared meal, each soft word in the quiet of the evening became a thread weaving them together in a fragile yet undeniable tapestry of connection. For Truong, she was the world, the only world he could recognize and understand in this strange, new reality. And those shadows of the past lingered beyond the edges of his mind, threatening to make him restless and uncertain. For now, he found solace in the embrace of the woman who had given him life once more. She was his mother in every sense that mattered, and in her care, he began to navigate the unfamiliar terrain of a life stripped bare of its history, yet filled with the quiet promise of a future he had yet to know. Yet even amid the fragile peace that Truong had found with the woman who had become his mother, there lingered an unbearable absence, a void carved on memories that could no longer return. Ly Tieu Nu and little Zui, who had once been the center of his world, were now ghosts in his mind, intangible and unreachable. He walked through his days unaware of the love he had once known, of the laughter that had once filled his home, and of the warmth of family bonds that had defined him. Those who remembered the old Truong, those who had loved him deeply, watched with silent anguish as he embraced a new life while the old one seemed lost forever. The paradox of his existence was cruel. Alive, cared for, and yet somehow irretrievably absent from the very hearts that had once been his own. Each evening, when the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long across the quiet rooms of the house, the woman who had saved him would sit by his side, sensing that his mind wandered into spaces she could not follow. Sometimes, in fleeting moments of stillness, Truong's eyes would darken, as if searching for a memory he could not grasp. He might pause mid-sentence, his expression torn between familiarity and confusion, only to smile softly at her, reassured by her presence. In those moments, she would feel both relief and sorrow. Relief that he remained safe, and sorrow for the life he had forgotten, for the people he no longer recognized as his own. The love he had for Ly Tieu Nu, the protective devotion he had felt toward little Zui, all of it had been erased, leaving only a shadow of the man they had known. And yet, life pressed on. Truong's days became a delicate dance between the world he inhabited now and the one he had lost. The woman who had nurtured him carried the heavy weight of truth in her heart, knowing that while she could give him comfort and care, she could not restore the irreplaceable connections of the past. The silence of those lost memories hung over them both, a reminder that love, once forgotten, cannot easily be reclaimed. For Truong, life was a new beginning, yet one built upon the ruins of a past he could not remember. For those who loved him, every smile he gave to another, every word of affection spoken to the woman who had saved him was bittersweet, a testament to survival and devotion, yet a painful reminder of what had been irreversibly lost. The man who had once been their husband, their father, their friend, now lived in the space between memory and reality, cherished and cared for, yet forever distant from the world and the people who had once defined his very soul.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tiểu Nữ Review. Vậy là trong câu chuyện của chúng ta ngày hôm nay thì Trường chính thức là vẫn còn sống, nhưng mà có một tin rất là đáng buồn, đó chính là anh đã bị mất trí nhớ toàn bộ. Bây giờ mọi ký ức về mẹ ruột của anh cũng như Lý Tiểu Nữ và bé Duy đã không còn tồn tại trong trí nhớ của anh. Mọi tình tiết hấp dẫn sẽ còn được kể ở các video tiếp theo. Các bạn hãy bấm vào nút subscribe để đăng ký kênh, sẽ nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các tập phim sẽ được phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh nha. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.